This is the third of a 52-part series as we journey week by week through a daily Stoic. I do not believe that reading alongside me for this is necessary, but I think that it is definitely something which would be far more profitable than simply watching these videos. I think that, first off, I'm only going to be talking about a small portion of the book each week, and there are 7 days, obviously, 7 entries per week, so a whole lot more than I will, 365, 52, 313, 313 entries that I will not be talking about, but I'm going to break that math a little bit this week because there are multiple entries that I want to talk about. Look, part of the interesting thing about taking a book as slowly as you were forced to take something like the Daily Stoic is that you are giving a whole lot more credence to every word that you read versus, say, for example, Stephen King, right? That's a big old book. So there's parts where you've just got to get through and you just read. These daily entries are meditations, ironically enough. So when you are enduring something in this way, thinking that much more deeply about the things as we go, you'll notice patterns of things. You will connect dots to things. For me here, previous entries, whereas before, maybe, with something that you're reading fast, you probably wouldn't have meditated on anything long enough to sort of snatch out this serendipitous twist, whatever your view on this thing is in this way. So I want to start today with January 18. The subtitle, See the World Like a Poet and an Artist. And the quote, the excerpt, is from Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. And then there is some writing from Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman after that. So, pass through, from Marcus Aurelius, pass through this brief patch of time in harmony with nature, and come to your final resting place gracefully, just as a ripened olive might drop, praising the earth that nourished it, and grateful to the tree that gave it growth. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. The quote here is not so important to me as the blurb afterwards. There are some stunningly beautiful turns of phrase in Marcus's Meditations, a surprising treat considering the intended audience, just himself. In one passage, he praises the, quote, charm and allure, end quote, of nature's process, the, quote, stalks of ripe grain bending low, the frowning brow of the lion, the foam dripping from the boar's mouth, end quote. We should thank private rhetoric teacher Marcus Cornelius Fronto for the imagery in these vivid passages. Fronto, widely considered to be Rome's best orator besides Cicero, was chosen by Marcus's adopted father to teach Marcus to think and write and speak. More than just pretty phrases, they gave him, and now us, a powerful perspective on ordinary or seemingly unbeautiful events. It takes an artist's eye to see that the end of life is not unlike a ripe fruit falling from its tree. It takes a poet to notice the way, quote, breaking bread splits in places and those cracks, while not intended in the baker's art, catch our eye and serve to stir our appetite, end quote, and find a metaphor in them. There is clarity and joy in seeing what others can't see, in finding grace and harmony in places others overlook. Isn't that far better than seeing the world as some dark place? For me, part of what is going on here is the reminder that, do not take chance for granted. There is some measure of serendipity to everything that one is willing to study hard enough. In this way, like we make our own fate, we make our own luck. Making your own fate, making your own luck are maybe things that are a little bit post-Stoic philosopher, but I think play into the Stoic philosophy. Artists, in this way, seem almost instinctively opposed to the Stoics, but I beg to differ. I think that this is something that I take very personally because I consider myself a writer. I consider myself a creator of videos like this as well to some degree. But writing is my main creative outlet. Without writing, I suffer. I suffer greatly. I lose it when I don't have the time and the space and the energy to write. So I have to create the time and the space and the energy to write, as to not be a victim of circumstance, right? And I think that all artists have to do that to some degree. And because of that, I think the greater sort of idea at play here is that inasmuch as artists would profit from being Stoic to some degree, Stoics profit as well from being artists. So back on page 19 here, January 11th, if you want to be unsteady, artists, I think, are notoriously unsteady. There is a greater amount of serendipity, I think, to the artist's outlook. The quote comes to us from Epictetus in Discourses. For if a person shifts their caution to their own reasoned choices, and the acts of those choices, they will at the same time gain the will to avoid. But if they shift their caution away from their own reasoned choices to things not under their control, seeking to avoid what is controlled by others, they will then be agitated, fearful, and unstable. And the quote from the authors here: the image of the Zen philosopher is the monk up in the green, quiet hills, or in the beautiful temple on some rocky cliff. The Stoics are the antithesis of this idea. Instead, they are the man in the marketplace, the senator in the forum, the brave wife waiting for her soldier to return from battle, the sculptor busy in her studio. Still, the Stoic is equally at peace. Epictetus is reminding you that serenity and stability are the results of your choices and judgment, not your environment. If you seek to avoid all disruptions to tranquility, other people, external events, stress, you will never be successful. Your problems will follow you wherever you run and hide. But if you seek to avoid the harmful and disruptive judgments that cause those problems, then you will be stable and steady wherever you may happen to be. For me as an artist, what this speaks to, you're going to feel the emotions of life. To not feel the emotions of life is not to be stoic, but is to be inhuman. So the sort of Stoic take on this, from what I understand, and again, I'm no Stoic expert on Stoicism. The Stoic take on this is that you have no choice in whether or not you feel these things. You have choice as to whether or not and how you react to these things. You will flare up with anger inside, but will you yell at that person? You will have your heart broken, but will you shut down for months at a time? So for me, the way that this sort of manifests best is that taking a step back from the reaction, I am then able to process those things and get that out there in writing. Without that ability to step back, you don't have control over your creative process when you get there. But when you take that step back and you choose your own reactions, you are then able to harness those emotions into your art. What will happen will happen, and if that is out of your control, and while we are left, in the great, okay, I can't read my own handwriting here. Give me a second. What will happen, and if that is out of our control, and while we are left in the great without, as far as the actual incident is concerned, of so many things, we should not let those happenings victimize us or break us. This is not to say that we should not observe them, and that we should not try to learn from them and conceptualize them the way that artists do. And in the same way that I think that those two entries play into one another, I think that a good place to sort of wrap up that strain of thought is with January 19th. Wherever you go, wherever you go, there your choice is. The quote is from Epictetus in Discourses again. A podium and a prison is each a place, one high and the other low. But in either place your freedom of choice can be maintained if you so wish. And the blurb from the authors here. The Stoics all held vastly different stations in life. Some were rich, some were born at the bottom of Rome's rigid hierarchy. Some had it easy, others had it unimaginably hard. This is true for us as well. We all come to philosophy from different backgrounds, and even within our own lives, we experience bouts of good fortune and bad fortune. But in all circumstances, adversity or advantage, we really have just one thing we need to do. Focus on what is in our control as opposed to what is not. Right now, we might be laid low with struggles, whereas just a few years ago, we might have lived high on the hog. And in just a few days, we might be doing so well that success is actually a burden. One thing will stay constant: our freedom of choice, both in the big picture and the small picture. Ultimately, there is clarity. Whoever we are, wherever we are, what matters is our choices. What are they? How will we evaluate them? How will we make the most of them? Those are the questions life asks us, regardless of our station. How will you answer? So I think that this is really sort of a nice entry with which we might conclude this video. There was another entry that I really wanted to, I might have to just make a separate video for it. But sometimes I think it is very easy to get lost in where we are. Allow ourselves to feel the victim. Allow ourselves to use victim status, being victim of life, as an excuse. I am working 6 days a week right now. I am putting in 50 to 55 hours per week at work. It would be very easy for me to stop making videos. It would be very easy for me to stop writing. I don't know if you can see the bags under my eyes right now. They are real. I refuse, because these are the things that I hold important. These are the things that I want to do. These are the places where I wish to make a difference. And not claiming hero status here for this. I think that this is the ground level. I am refusing the world's game. I am refusing life's rules. I am refusing to do what would be easy. I think it was Les Miles who said, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And that is sing-songy, and that is sort of Hallmark, right? Greeting card type stuff. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. But every time you don't want to do something, I promise you, if you just run that through your mind 2 or 3 times, it becomes easier to do those things you don't want to do. I promise you, it becomes easier to do those things that you don't want to do. And here's another extremely funny type thing that I'm recognizing and picking up the more Stoic stuff I'm reading now. All of your motivational speakers are Stoics. Now, that's hyperbolic. Not all of them. All the ones worth listening to. Goggins, Stoic. Tony Robbins, Stoic. Les Miles, Stoic. Jocko, Stoic. Stoic in that what they are refusing to do is let anything stop them ultimately. Not everything's going to go your way, but when it doesn't, that doesn't have to be the end. That's the thing that I'm trying to pick up more and more from these readings here. And this series of 3 entries, I think, do a really good job of outlining that. What was your favorite entry? If you are reading along here, what was your entry that really stuck out from this reading? I am interested to see if anyone states the one entry that I'm not talking about in this video, that maybe I'll have to make a separate video for which maybe I will have to make a separate video. But if you are reading along in this with me, I would be interested in the comments to hear a little bit about your experience with this. Again, like I said in the second video, I said, I'm really not sure where the rest of the book goes because all of the core tenets of Stoicism that I knew about have already been mentioned, right? But it seems like we're just going to be getting different aspects on those key tenets, which, hey, I'm here for. So that is all I have for this episode. Hitting that like button really helps me out here on the channel. Hit the subscribe button if you are here by chance but not design, and this is something that you might consider, in which you might consider partaking in the future.